Hello, and welcome back to Keep It Dirty. I am your host, Leslie Dowling, and I'm a functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner and public speaker. And today, my guest is Shawn Blymiller. He's a men's mindset coach and a functional medicine coach. So, welcome, Shawn. It's an honor to have you.
Leslie, thank you for the opportunity for me to share my story. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, it seems like prior to recording today, I'm pretty organic and open. We had a really great conversation about just being in line with helping people, giving back to the community, and trying to find alternative methods to help people functionally versus allopathically. But I'd love to hear your story and your why behind what you're doing. And maybe you could tell our guests a little bit what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's kind of a longer story, so I'll try to keep it just summarized in the best way possible. Probably started back in 2007, where I tried to commit suicide, and I was on antidepressants for almost 10 years. It was after a breakup with a girlfriend, and I was 23 at the time. It was the first time I had faced existential crisis and the biggest pain in my life. And then I was put on antidepressants for the next 10 years. So from 2007 to 2016, I was on lithium and bupropion, which honestly really watered down my life and my experience, kind of numbed me to my everyday world. And in 2016, I decided to come off of antidepressants for a number of reasons. Number one, I had got caught up in addiction in certain things, and I felt like the antidepressants actually propelled the addiction. And so in 2016, I decided to come off of lithium and bupropion, and it kind of kickstarted this lifelong journey of really finding myself and coming into my own. And then from there, my son was diagnosed with autism in 2018 with a level 3 diagnosis, which is the highest level, just meaning that he required the greatest attention and care. He always has to have someone with him. He's 7 now. In 2019, he was diagnosed with PANDAS, which is a streptococcal infection that causes inflammation of the brain. So it dove me even deeper into wellness and alternative healing modalities. And I found functional medicine, or we as a family found functional medicine for my son, where we started with nutrition first, and we saw huge improvements where at the time he had regressed. He had stopped making eye contact. He had stopped responding to his name. The moment we removed inflammatory foods from his diet, he started to return back to us. And it was a fight. My wife was the one that had suggested it for me. She had started a group, they call themselves a Biomed Moms on social media, that they had found themselves from across the country. And they all started coming up with ideas of alternative healing modalities, ion foot bath to supplements to help with MTHFR mutations and all these different ideas. And the first suggestion that my wife, Angela, came to me with was, hey, we need to take gluten, dairy out of his diet. And at first I was like, this is hippie logic. You're crazy. It's not going to work. It's old wives' tales. And she kept bugging me for a couple months. Finally, I gave in and I said, okay, listen, I'll give you 2 weeks. And after the 2 weeks, I don't want to hear anything else. I grew up with Doritos and Gushers and fruit snacks, and my family would go on trips all the time. And that was one of my favorite things that I got excited for, was all the junk food. So I fought against it for a while, and finally I said, okay, 2 weeks. We'll do a full send. We'll commit as a family. And my daughter came running into our bedroom and just said, Mommy, Daddy, did you hear that? Theo's laughing. He's
Wow.
playing with me. And I turned to my wife and I said, okay, I guess there's something here. And we stuck to it. That was in 2019. In 2020, I decided to join or to sign up and enroll in the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy built by Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum in collaboration with the Institute for Functional Medicine. And it was life-changing for me. Everyone knows the year that 2020 was, but for me to complete that and then also complete my 200-hour yoga certification all in the same year. It was just this awakening of, wow, there's so much more out there besides allopathic medicine, and there's so much more to explore and discover to find healing as a family. So, actually, rewind to 2018 when my son was diagnosed with autism. I was reading a book by Gabby Bernstein called "The Universe Has Your Back," and in the book, it talks about it teaches you how to pray differently. And, I grew up in a Judeo-Christian environment. I grew up LDS Mormon, and so I had this structure of prayer where you say where you're grateful for, and then you ask for what you need, and then you close the prayer. But in this book, Gabby Bernstein says, pray to the universe for the highest good. So I did. I tried it. That night I had a dream of this logo where it's three hexagons. And I had no idea what it was, but in this dream, this voice came into my head and said, this will take you places and you never thought you would go. And so when I woke up, I drew it on my mirror, and the only thing I knew was it was a lifestyle medicine. It was a lifestyle brand. So that was 2018. Fast forward to today, to 2013. 2023. There's two sides of the business. We have a for-profit side that I'm growing coaches, hiring coaches for health and wellness coaching. Working with a doctor to grow the functional medicine model with a provider. And then we have a nonprofit side that's in process. 501(c) hopefully gets finalized in the next few months. But the goal is to provide the 501(c)(3) for special needs families.
Mm-hmm.
Having a son with a diagnosis, we learned pretty quickly that if you forget about your health, everyone loses, our son included. We would get so built up into trying to figure out and solve his problems, his challenges. We'd research all day long, a lack of sleep on PubMed, and reading articles late into the night because we still had to work full time. And then when we got home, that's all we did. And we quickly learned that you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. And so the vision with the Pure Living Family Foundation, the nonprofit side, is we want to give out grants every year to special needs families, to parents that are struggling. They're just buried in their kid's diagnosis and they've forgotten about themselves. And caring for a special needs kid is so expensive. So we want to be able to give them grants that they can use that money to take care of themselves, refuel, to then be
Mm-hmm.
able to go back and care for their kids. So I know that was kind of a long-winded response, but it's kind of where we landed, or how we got to where we are today.
Wow, that's incredible. And I wanted to ask you a question. Now I know, but maybe the people that are listening in today, maybe you could explain about Utah and the red states and the different, regulations and laws and practicing functional nutrition, and how has that either helped you or have created roadblocks as you expand and do an outreach with your business.
Yeah, that's a great question. Utah specifically is very much influenced by the Mormon faith. I mean, the pioneers came to Utah in the late 1800s and settled here. And if you even go to the Capitol building, a lot of the history of our state is built around this faith, this religion. So it's interwoven into everyone's experience, whether you're a member of the church or not. And so that plays a big part in all of policy. I was just part of the legalization of psilocybin plant medicine for therapeutic purposes. I spoke at a press conference at the Capitol a couple weeks ago. I spoke at a Senate committee hearing, trying to get this SB 200 passed. And the church, the religious environment plays a big role in policy here in Utah. And I think that's true for a lot of states, the red states. And I think there's good and bad to that. Obviously, you have to have some sort of touchstones that are guidance for civilizations, for communities, for tribes. And, Judeo-Christian values have really what set our country apart and created our country from the beginning. But it's interesting now to see that there's more people asking for that control to be released a little bit and allow us to explore different healing modalities. I personally am fascinated by indigenous tribes and their connection to Mother Earth, Pachamama, um, and their relationship with food and nature. And I'm doing a bunch of research that I have a lot of Cherokee heritage within my family, and it doesn't look like it. I'm this white
Yeah. Yeah.
male, but
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
as I've dove into more of the genealogy, my grandma's side, my dad's mom has Cherokee tribe in her blood, and I feel that kind of calling to me now is, if you look at when the United States was colonized, the treatment of the indigenous tribes was so awful. You
Hmm.
have the Trail of Tears specifically for the Cherokee tribe, where over 4,000 Indian Native Americans died because they were forced to new lands in Oklahoma from Tennessee. And, um, I think American history, we need to look at everything. In our schools, a lot of stuff has been whitewashed of this romanticized America that has been good to the world. And as we dive deeper into the history, we learn that Americans haven't always been kind.
Yeah.
Americans haven't always been the best to, especially indigenous, other cultures. And I think it's time for that conversation to allow everyone to have a voice. And the Christian dominant religion needs to give everyone a voice and not just dominate the conversation anymore. In my humble opinion.
Hmm. Yeah. It's really interesting what you're saying. I'm getting goosebumps because about 15 years ago, I was just briefing through a magazine and I saw the Boynton Canyons. And there was something about it that I needed to go there. And I just remember when my boys were very little, I said to my husband, I don't know why I feel so drawn to go there.
Hmm.
And he said, okay. So since then, every year we go out to Sedona. And I always say that's going to be where I'm going to be retiring and set up shop and helping people because I've had a lot of, and it depends, some people don't believe in this and the beliefs, but I've had a lot of past life regressions. And I have pictures of Indian chiefs all in my house, and I always just felt this connection with them. And just when I would have past life regressions, I'd be in tears just saying that they look what they did to our land, and I'm so Mother Nature. I'm so drawn to that, and I'm an outdoors woman, and all my children are like that too, and they have that instilled in them, and they have that respect. And we learned about the Yavapai tribe, and so who knows? But I just feel so drawn to that area, and when I go there, I feel at home and at peace. And
Yeah.
I wasn't raised there. I was raised in New York and then moved to Pennsylvania. So it's just interesting how we kind of connected. And it was serendipity because I was texting or I was responding to somebody via Instagram. And then I came across your Instagram, but I was responding to her. And then you said, tell me about your voice, or, why is this? And then it's amazing. Here we are, and you're a guest on my show.
Yeah.
And there's so many great and beautiful connections. So I'm so proud of all that you're doing, and just be an advocate and a voice for your child and for people, and
Yeah.
and you're hitting people all over, and that's amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think just to respond to your comment about Sedona, I find it super fascinating that a lot of people are leaving urban America and buying, especially with COVID and everyone going remote. And now you can work from anywhere basically for a lot of organizations. And so buying land in Wyoming and Montana and even Utah, the house prices are at all-time highs. And because I feel like people need this connection to Mother Earth, to nature. With that comes a relationship with food, with nature, and we've lost a lot of that touch. Even just traveling from Florida, I was there at a conference all this last week, and it's interesting as you travel to different locations, the foods that are readily available everywhere, highly processed, a lot of highly processed bread, um, grill, you know, grilled and fried chicken, and stuff that is not really straight from nature. It's, if you look at the from farm to table, there's so much that happens in that process. And it's been really cool as a family as we've dove more into the naturopathic healing modalities, that food really is medicine. I'm actually reading, wearing one of my shirts. I don't know if you can see it, but it just says, "I want,
Wow.
I want to eat real food with my family." This last year, we went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, to do stem cell therapy for my son that was delivered intrathecally. And we stayed there for 5 weeks total, because we did the treatment for 1 week, and then we ended up staying there for 4 additional weeks, just so that we can be next to nature, go on walks on the beach every single day. And one of the days we found this incredible place right on the ocean. And I went on my mission to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I had acai for the first time.
Wow.
And acai is an incredible fruit, and eating it in Brazil was just, it was mind blowing, the taste, and just the way you felt after eating it. And I remember thinking to myself, I just want to share this with my family. And as a missionary, I was there by myself. And it came kind of full circle, where now I'm in Puerto Vallarta and I'm sharing acai, real acai, because there's a lot of acai in the United States that is fully processed and put into plastics that doesn't, it loses a lot of its life and flavor. But to get it fresh from the jungle in Mexico and to eat it with my family was just this spiritual moment of, wow, there's so much change that needs to happen within our society, within our civilization. We have to have a greater connection with Mother Earth, with food that it provides to us. Um, but yeah, that's where my passion for real food comes in.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, people say, well, you're in your mid 50s and you're so fit and you're so, like, what are you doing? And I said, it's, you know what, we're so programmed here in the US with marketing, social media, that everybody wants a quick fix. And everybody wants to lose that weight really quickly. And it's a lifestyle change.
Yeah,
And the cleaner you eat, the more your senses are heightened, your taste buds are heightened. And I understand that eating organic is really difficult for people on a tight budget.
yeah,
When our soil is so deplete of the minerals and nutrients, it's like it's it's a domino effect, because if the minerals and the soil have all those enriched minerals and everything, it then has an effect with the food that then tastes like a strawberry or a blueberry. And how many times you go to a supermarket, you try to get organic, and there's no taste to the fruits and vegetables. And us, we as human beings are so deplete in magnesium and so many minerals that are so important. And I just wonder, if we could look at the big picture. And I think people like you and I, we kind of look at the aerial view of what's going on with our society, and how so many people are so numb to just not being aware of what they're putting in their mouth, or what's going on with our environment, or what we're putting on topically, being that our skin is our largest organ. And that's where I come into play, and I try to educate and nurture people to have
yeah,
that aha moment. And it can be overwhelming, right? I mean, the first time I started doing this 30 years ago, there's a lot, just being an advocate, going into the supermarket and reading the labels.
yeah.
So,
Well, and I find it interesting, just to go back to the beginning of my story, where I wrote my first suicide note when I was 13. So I've been
mm,
suffering from depression for most of my life, and it kind of runs in my family. My brother and sister, my dad have all been diagnosed with it, and we've all been given pain meds, or sorry, not pain meds, antidepressants.
yeah,
And growing up and as a teenager, you're given this stuff and it's justified. Oh, sometimes your brain chemistry doesn't work, and so you need some help, which to a point I believe that. But honestly, I believe that more so now than ever is a lot of the reason that we have a mental health crisis going on is because of the nutrient deficiencies that we have, and our bodies are craving nutrients, and we misinterpret the messages that our central nervous system are giving us. And so then a lot of people end up, overeating, or I'm still addicted to sugar. I think it's one of the most addictive substances on the earth. And to
Yeah.
break that addiction is so difficult, because you program yourself that when you're dealing with tough emotions, you go and eat to console yourself and to make yourself feel better. And so it's this whole reprogramming that has to happen, that is such a huge mountain to climb for every individual and as a civilization as a whole.
Yeah, and I get nerdy. I like statistics, and I like to just see really what's going on with the world. And I think on your Instagram, you had a couple of stats on the books, because I love Dr. Perlmutter. There was a symposium about Alzheimer's being the new type 3 diabetes,
Right.
and I did a lecture on that, and Chris Kresser and Mark Hyman, and they're so instrumental with what they're doing, and there are people like us that are just jumping on that bandwagon. But when it comes to, so 500 over 500 products, foods were banned and taken off of the shelves in the European countries, in the supermarkets, where we are still selling these products.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, even if it looks healthy, breads, they're radiated with sugar, even sauce to make, the red sauce and pasta. So for everybody that's listening, please start reading the labels. So what would your tips be for someone who's just starting this journey that wants their children to be on a healthier way of lifestyle and eating?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I like to use the analogy, it's a mountain to climb. So you can't overwhelm yourself and try to do too much at once. So the same way you climb a mountain, it's one step at a time, little changes at a time. And once you get that into your rhythm, your routine, it becomes easier to then make additional changes. So in the beginning for our family, we removed gluten-free or gluten and dairy products, to start. And that was really the start of our whole transition as a family. And it's still difficult. I have a 10-year-old daughter that it's funny. Everyone comes over to our house and there's like, why is everything organic in our home? Because everyone wants the sweets, especially as kids,
Yeah.
because our taste buds are completely taken hostage. And especially for kids, and just to speak to the labels, living in Mexico for 5 weeks was eye opening, because high fructose corn syrup is not allowed, right? And then even additional sugars have to be posted huge black letters on all the substances that are sold in
Mm-hmm.
Mexico. And the United States has this egocentric idea that we are far superior than other countries, but really honestly, I think the world is seeing that the United States, especially when it comes to health, is not the model to follow. We have 4 out of 10, or sorry, 6 out of 10 Americans have a chronic illness. 4 out of 10 of those have two chronic illnesses, which I very much believe is part of our diet, but part of our everyday lifestyle.
Yeah.
And now you have these shots coming out for kids. I just watched a Russell Brand uh, YouTube the other day with the Coca-Cola executive that had left, and he said 45% of our kids are diabetic. And so now they're coming out, the big pharma's coming out with these shots, for insulin. The kids then become dependent on the shot to absorb their glucose, their sugars. And that, honestly, that's just not the way. We need to figure out a way that we get these kids active, and not only
Yeah.
the kids, the parents, that we get everyone active for at least 45 minutes to an hour every day, even if it's just a walk outside in
Mm-hmm.
nature. And that's really the way I think that we beat diabetes and even hypertension. Is we've got to get active so that our body utilizes the extra glucose that we have within our veins.
Absolutely. And there's so many cases of younger kids with Crohn's and celiac disease,
Mm,
and the factor of leaky gut issues. And I think most of our society, to one extent or another, deals with leaky gut. I don't know of anyone that doesn't have some sort of um, food allergy or inflammation, which is so prevalent in our country and worldwide now.
Yeah.
So it's really it's a challenge, but people like us are meant to be on this planet to have a voice and educate and give people knowledge and the hope that we could walk side by side with them and create a roadmap for their journey to just get on a better lifestyle plan. And that's what I'm so passionate about
Yeah.
too. So yeah, I really thank you for today. And there's so many things I think we could just hit upon.
Yeah.
But I definitely would love to have you on again as a guest because I would love to hear how your company is doing and
Mhm.
what is going on. And Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum, first of all, she's the coolest woman, the most fit woman in her early
Yeah.
70s.
She's a
Um,
fireball. I
yeah,
keep telling her sorry for the language, but I call her a badass. But because she's doing a lot of leg presses, she's an
yeah,
example. And she even does headstands every day to start her day, which she's an
right,
example to everyone for sure.
absolutely. I look up to her and I just cheer her on. So, but with that, I want to thank you again, Shawn. And for everybody that's listening, how can they reach out to you? What are your links? Please share
Yeah.
that.
So our website is purelivingfamily.com. The Instagram is purelivingfamily is the handle. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Reach out to us there. Purelivingfamily.com. There's a link to schedule time with me as a consultation. But I'm really excited for this year specifically as we get the nonprofit launched because honestly, if you know of any special needs families that are dealing with a difficult diagnosis and they're kind of just barely keeping their head above water, we would love to be a resource for them. Even if they go to our website, they go to our podcast, Pure Living Family podcast, to listen to our story and kind of see how we navigated two very difficult diagnoses and the hope that we see with the diagnosis. Because a lot of times doctors give these diagnoses and then they want you just to accept, like, oh, your kid's limited forever. And we strongly believe that your kids are not limited. There's still so much that they can achieve. Just this last few weeks, I learned of a guy that was diagnosed with autism, was nonverbal until he was 11, and in his 20s he spoke at Oxford when he
Yeah.
graduated. So there's so much upside. There's so much potential to every single kid, even if they do get an autism or PANDAS diagnosis. Don't give up, even if your doctors are negative and don't give you a lot of hope. Come find us, and we can connect you with the network of other parents that have a lot of hope for their kids.
And I will spread the word and let everybody know about all that you're doing to touch other people's lives and help other families.
Well,
So
I appreciate that, and I thank you for the opportunity. And it's awesome the work that you're doing as a functional nutritionist, and I hope that we can continue to work together, collaborate in any way
absolutely.
possible. So,
I would love that. And thank you, everybody who's listening, our viewers. And we will see you soon. Take care.